It's so funny. That's the last thing on my note. Violet shows up so family can say goodbye, and then it's the next section.
It's really the next scene. It's like too much jumping around. It's like 5
So many plots.
Hi, I'm Shamar Griffith, codename Comic Shams.
And I am Andrew Tejada, codename Arate. This season, we're getting whelmed for DC's greatest sidekicks and covering every episode of Young Justice on
Yet Another DC animated podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. Welcome to yet another episode of Yet Another DC animated podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codename Comic Shams.
And I am Andrew Tejada, codename Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year. The Bash at the Beach wrestling event happened at the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida. It is best known for the time that Hulk Hogan did a heel turn, where a good guy revealed he was actually evil.
Oh, I like it. See, all these old people, man, they just end up being evil for some reason. Like, don't trust them. Even if they repping that Hulkamania, they are like the Hulk. They got the 27-inch pythons, or even if their name has good in it.
Yeah. And last little thing about it, man, Randy Savage, Sting, and Lex Luger faced off against a team known as the Outsiders.
Oh! Oh my God. Gretchen Good is Hulk Hogan. We're going to see a lot about that, though, in a couple more episodes of Young Justice. But today, we're continuing on for our coverage of Young Justice Outsiders. So, very appropriately named. I don't think anyone was hit in a chair with a chair during this episode. I would assume somebody was hit with a chair in that bash that happened, though. So yes, we are continuing on with our coverage of Young Justice. We are covering episodes 20 to 21 today. And these title episodes are Quiet Conversations and Unknown Factors. We're going to be going through January 1st. So we are in this new year of Young Justice all the way to the late date of January 22nd. So right up until Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
That's going to come back, guys.
Yes. And because of the kind of stuff that does come up in what we learn about today in our 2 episodes, a lot of focus on Cyborg, a lot of focus on Granny Goodness, and a lot of technology that might be put into place. Figured it'd be nice to call this one the New Interface, which is also something I guess you could say too about if a foot comes into your face whenever you're inside of a wrestling ring.
I like these wrestling times. Let's see if we can work some more in as we keep going.
All right, well, we gotta do it. We gotta do it like this. And now we have our cast list coming in with a double G name. We got Gretchen Good, who is voiced by Deborah Strang. Coming in with his own chair, we have Phil Lamar voicing Metron.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
This man is cooking it up, and you might say that he has a bit of a, I got nothing for this guy. We got Silas, the Dr. Bad Father Stone, as Carrie Payton continues to voice this man. Bringing new life into the world, we have Masasa Moyo and Kevin Michael Richardson, who return as the voice of Bumblebee, and Malcolm Duncan, who's giving us a little update about what's going on in their lives. And finally, coming in at a staggering height of feet and inches that I did not do the research for. You've seen her in The Good Place, where she was Vicky or the real Eleanor. Movies like The Internship starring Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. And probably most popularly, the voice of Sabine Wren in the animated series Star Wars Rebels. So to all you Ahsoka fans out there, give a round of applause to Pia Sircar, who is voicing Dolphin in our episodes today.
It's such a great lead up, and then you say her name, and
Yeah. No offense to her name, but it's just like there's nothing intimidating about it, especially with Dolphin.
you're in Atlantis, so maybe it means something different, but down here on the surface, it's like this is why we clown you Atlanteans. Like, come on.
So now that our contestants are all set, let's Zeta Tube over to the beginning of Quiet Conversations.
Here we have a loud conversation because Victor is yelling at his dad. Typical stuff. We did wonder where Victor has gone, and now we know he was out on the streets yelling about his father this whole time. He yells so much he gets so tired out, and he falls in an alley. And sometime later, Fred Bug is walking in the streets, and he finds Victor on the street. And I do like. There's a moment where Fred Bug is in his glamour, but in his reflection, you see him
Mm-hmm.
as the bug, in case you forgot, because again, there's a lot of things you might have forgotten in this episode. And this is where we get the revelation after finding Victor that he is slowly being taken over by the father box, and there's only a few things that might be able to save him.
Yeah, so at this moment we see that Dr. Helga J, she is tending to his care. He does seem to be stable, but of course this is Father Box new god technology. So Superboy decides to go find somebody that he knows might be able to help, and he comes back with Dreamer, Dreamer of the Forever People. So we last saw or first met Dreamer back in our season 1 episode where Superboy got a chance to ride on the I don't know, it was kind of like the Ultron Megazords the situation that they were able to turn into. So Dreamer brings forward this mother box, and as we know, mother boxes and father boxes tend to compete against each other, but the mother box is the one that is able to really try and heal and try to do things. It's revealed by the mother box that unfortunately the only thing that could probably heal Victor at this point to purge him of all of the father box tech that's spreading throughout his body is the Mobius chair that Metron is famously known for using. So at this point, also, we have another character from our show who we haven't seen in a while, and that is Violet, who Terra and Forager come in and they are very upset because Violet has vanished, leaving behind a note saying that she's sorry and then she has decided to leave.
Yeah, and hope you're counting the plots because we're just getting started with the plots in this episode.
Oh yes.
Um, so we do see as they're making their plan, Dreamer's like, I would love to go, but I don't want to. And she just straight up leaves, but gives him a mother box
Right.
to to go and find Metron. We see a quick moment where Helga makes out with Jeff as Jeff decides to go on this mission as well. Breon Markov, he's still feeling sad about everything that's happened with Violet, finding out that Violet's the body of Violet Gabrielle in a previous life basically paved the way for the execution of his parents. So he's still a little bit sad about that. So he chooses to stay behind. The trio of Jeff, Fredbug, and Superboy use the mother box and follow Metron to the source wall, which I'm sure you know much more about than me. It just looks like a bunch of statues to me. So they're arriving at the source wall. But before we can cover any of that, we step over to Happy Harbor, where Harper and McGann are having a very, very serious conversation.
Yes. So here we have plot number 3. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're having this conversation in the office. So once again, McGann is operating as, I'm assuming, a guidance counselor for Happy Harbor High School. She shares from her own eyes that she's seeing bruises around Harper's body, specifically on her lower neck. This is when Harper defensively claims that it was just her and her brother. They were roughhousing, and that kind of stating that like kids are going to be kids. And she tries to change the subject by asking what happened to Violet, because again, in our previous episodes, we do see that this bond has been forming between the two of them. And possibly the last time they actually saw each other was during the kiss that they shared before they were arrested for gun violence. So and yeah, I just realized how weird
Yeah.
that sounded when I said it.
Yeah.
So this is where McGann tries to swing it back because she is trying to tell her that, like, I get that you're concerned about Violet, but at the same time, I do want to talk about what's happening with you. Like, what brought you to this point where it's just like we're having this conversation. Um, and even states that, like, you don't need to worry about Violet because people are out there looking for her, even though she is missing. But if you do know anything, please let us know. And this is when Harper shares, it must be nice to have people who care about you. We now jump back to one of our previous plot points. Again, this is where Artemis has decided to go with Tara, and they've taken Spear to go and see if they could find Violet. So they fly off into the distance as we hop over to the bar where there's a woman and a young man who are in a house, and they hear a knock at the door, and they're both shocked to see who it is because they see Violet, but this is where we're introduced to Madia and Samad Dao, who are Violet's or Gabrielle's biological mother and her cousin. And they're just so happy to see her because even in that point, when they call her Gabrielle, Violet responds by calling her mother.
But don't worry about that quite yet because we gotta get to plot number 4. We gotta see that catching up with Calder and the Meditine that he took in. Um, I don't want to just say nameless Meditine, so I'm just gonna start calling her Dolphin now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Dolphin is adjusting because her surface language, apparently English is not meant to be spoken underwater. So she's been having trouble understanding Aquaman. So Aquaman takes her to Atlantis, and he is instantly able to do a magic spell where he can now speak Atlantean. So first of all, this is better than Duolingo. Secondly, um, if he could do this at any time, why didn't he before? Why did
Yeah.
he wait until they were underwater?
I'm like, yeah, because I'm just like, I don't know if it's like influence based because he has more water to work with, but again, it was magic. So why not just get into the same? She was in that same little water pod. Just get in there with her and try to see if you can decipher what to do for her and tell her, like, hey, I'm gonna take you to Atlantis so that we can help you there. Versus like we're just gonna show up in Atlantis and hope for the best.
So we step out of Atlantis back to our other one of our plot lines where Silas has arrived in the home base, and Vic is told that if he stresses out, he'll transform more. And that's exactly what happens because his father is a big source of stress for him. So the technology just warps his body in a really painful looking scene where metal is just jutting out of him. He's in pain. So again, you don't want to see any of that. So let's go over back to space where we have Jeff, Fredbug, and Superboy. And at this point, I have to ask, why the hell does Jeff not have a spacesuit on?
Yo, I've been wondering that the entire time. Cause I was like, y'all are like, this is not even like I'm in a spaceship out in space. Like y'all in the thick of it. Y'all in the no airspace, and they're just hopping around. Because at this point it's revealed that once again they're on the source wall. Forger, being a creature from New Genesis, knows very much about all of this, and he refers to them as like the old Promethean gods. So quick recap, because I think we did talk about it. Like, dang, like if I'm going to the deep recesses of my memory, probably like from season 1. um the source wall is basically the bridge between all reality and the multiverse in a way, and even to a bigger concept. So and it's this wall is filled with, like, in this universe is filled like the old Promethean gods, but it's also used as somewhat of the prison. There's some comics that have even shown that like Darkseid got pushed all the way to the source wall by Superman and was put there. And the thing about the Source Wall is that again, it stops the universes from colliding. So this is the wall between like the Marvel universe and the DC universe, or other properties and other IPs. So this is why again you won't see Flash and Quicksilver face off against each other, except for maybe in like a Screw Attack Death Battle YouTube video or something. But as they're going through, they realize Forger is just ecstatic because again, he's just saying that like he's heard about these old Promethean gods. So it's like really cool to be able to just venture around and see who they are. Jefferson is a little upset because he starts realizing that he is standing on the face of one and that they first appeared by walking through the nose of one. And I understand his discomfort. Like you don't know how it's probably been like a millennia since this thing has been up there. You don't know what kind of boogers might be coming down or something.
He does bring a little bit of like ground to it that I like.
Yeah.
And they also, while they're following Metron again, and they boom away, and they boom right into a battle where they see Superman, and Superboy calls Superman his brother, which I thought was a choice.
Yeah, I've been realizing that since I don't know if they did that in season 2, but like season 3 has been since that was the change that was just like, yeah, Superman's my brother versus like he's my clone, like I'm his actual son. Like he in all other media, I feel like it's always been like Superman, Superboy are like kind of father son, but not quite. I guess because over time it was just been like it doesn't seem like Kal-El didn't really have any other family. So he just assumed that like this is like my colleague, this is my friend because we've been battling against each other and now we are battling with each other, that kind of thing. So I don't. It's a weird choice.
Yeah, because I was like, maybe it's 'cause he had Jonathan that he doesn't want to call him son too. Maybe the Roys do that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think yeah, this is yeah, because that scene when Orm tried to kill all the parents, that's when Jonathan is shown to be there. So I guess it would make sense. So it's just like you can't have like I mean it's not like you can't have it, but it'd probably be weird for Superman to have like this this like 2 month old son plus this like 16 but actually 30 odd year old individual.
Well, that's Al Pacino. So,
Oh, probably Lois was also like, nah, that's your brother. I'm not having it be that we have this extended of a family or something.
Yeah, don't want to start those rumors.
Right.
So we cut quickly back to Earth, where Vic and Silas Stone are again having a little bit of a disagreement. Silas volunteers to put his son into a medically induced coma and insists that he should do it. No, this would not
Yeah.
happen. No one would let anyone. I mean, Silas is not the most ethical doctor to begin with, but trust me, this would not happen in any hospital. No way would they allow this to happen. But now that Victor's in a coma, we cut back to space where Superman is struggling against some parademons. So luckily, the other members of the team come in clutch to give him the edge he needs. And this is when Superman reveals that he was here to stop Granny from collecting some materials for this doomsday device. And Metron's like, you're too late for that. Sorry. But they do talk to Metron, and Metron is curious about what the Father Box is doing to Vic. So he agrees to go to Earth with them. Superman also agrees to be Superboy's best man. I'm not going to count that as
But he
another
doesn't
plot,
even
but
know.
it
He doesn't
can.
even know about them getting engaged.
There's no point in dwelling on it because we got to go back to Harper Row, that plot right now.
Yes. So here we have that again. It is this conversation between McGann and Harper, where McGann even states that I saw that your brother recently came in and he had a black eye. Harper continues to say that the two of them are just roughhousing, and this is mainly because she knows what will happen if she reports it to the authorities. What truly happened, which is that she is in an abusive household. Um, so she's afraid that if she reports this, the two of them will get split up, and she probably might never see her brother again. So she states once again, "We were roughhousing, and I'm telling you that story right now." Speaking about tough conversations to have, we hop on over to the bar again for the plot with Violet, as she tells her mother that she's dying. Um, the Samad, who is her cousin, suggests that they should try looking in, raising some money. The healthcare is kind of trash here where they're at, but Violet tells them that, like, hey, I've gone to the best doctors, and everyone says that nothing can be done. So she's really only here just to say goodbye.
But we'll get back to that later.
Mhm.
Right now, we got to go back to Atlantis, where King Aquaman, King Or, wait, say or not Orm. This is
Orin, yes.
Orin. This
Yeah,
is
I was
a
like,
name,
what happened? When did we get
government name.
Orin?
Arthur.
Right.
Sorry, Arthur. Um, so King Orin is meeting Dolphin, and Dolphin refuses to give her name. Is there? I maybe you can explain. Is there a reason for this? It was like
None
their comic.
None that I can find. I will do a bit more research, but honestly, there was no reason as to why she just did not want to give her name. Like, it is really weird.
Okay, so yeah, so she doesn't give the name to the king who is letting her stay here for free, and the king is ecstatic with Aquaman. He's saying, "I've always wanted you to step up. I'm so proud of you. I was particularly excited about the Ivo victory." And this is where you get Aquaman expressing a pang of regret that Dolphin is the only one to hone in on,
Mhm.
for some reason. And you can see some regret about it, from Aquaman's side. Meanwhile, we cut to another plot line, brief little split where Brion is being sad and brooding by himself, and Helga comes out to talk and says, "Hey, I know you're really sad right now, but just so you know, you're inspiring people. You're in your country. You should go, and your country is turning around on you. You should go and do some social media for them." So while he's doing that, we go back to the Victor plot line. We're it sounds like we're fast forwarding, but this is actually how the episode is playing out. So back to the Victor plot line. Metron's here. Metron's here to help, uh, but not really.
Yes. So as he enters the room, they're like, "Yeah, we got Metron. He's here to save Vic." And Metron's just like, "I'm not here to save your Vic. I'm here to watch him die." Because he states that he's never seen a father box completely override an organic system. And honestly, it would be fun to watch. It'll be fun to even study this, to see it in person. Everybody's shocked. Everybody's just like, "Yo, we just went out and tried to get you to help our friend." And I love Jefferson for this moment because my boy leans over the Superboy and was just like, "Yo, but for real though, Dreamer said we just only needed the chair. We really need Metron." So Superboy runs up, drops a fade on Metron real quick, but Metron wants to show that he is him and says, "You do realize I'm a new god. You were point 0.5 of nothing." And I was like, "Jeez, like what happened to you, Metron, that you are that evil?" So he hits Superboy with some kind of blast. And at this point, Jefferson starts attacking Metron with Black Lightning and forces him to the ground. And it's just a great scene because at this point, it does seem like Black Lightning wants to let loose, and he does, because it's so the lightning is so powerful that it actually pushes Metron down to the ground, so that everybody frantically can start grabbing Victor so that they can put him into Metron's chair to see what can be done.
Results later, but for now, back to Atlantis. Where I can't let them get away with this,
Mm-hmm.
because uh, when Calder introduces Dolphin to his parents, that she'll be staying with, he casually says, "Yeah, my dad is from the surface too, San Diego." Excuse me? What? No, we can't let that one slide. Where the hell? He has gills?
Yeah,
He had
I
gills the whole time? Please tell me this is a real thing and they didn't just make this up for the show.
no, it's real. It's real. So yes, it is like he is in it because there's so many different versions of Aqualad. We do have the most recent version that this that Cal is based off of, which is Jackson Hyde, I believe his name is. Um, so and in that story, yes, Calvin Durham is his father, and it's never really specified how Calvin got gills, but I'm assuming it's a redone version of the Aquaman origin story where the two actually got together, were able to have a happy marriage.
Okay. All right. San Diego, man. I'll let this one slide.
Or maybe just in San Diego, people have gills and we just don't know that. We'll find out more later.
I, I don't know. I've never been to San Diego Hood. I don't know. Um, so we we cut back. Well, before we cut back, Dolphin pulls Aquaman aside and says, "I know you lied earlier, but you're not a bad man because bad men don't feel bad when they lie." Which I was like, "Okay, great. Why is this coming from somebody you just met?" Anyway, back to Harper. So Harper here, she is still trying to shift blame and deflect. She says, "Violet, how do you know that wasn't Violet's gun that I used?" And M'gann is, just carefully and with nuance trying to get her to reveal more. And Harper hints that her dad is an alcoholic, so she wanted to get the gun out of the house away from her father.
Mm-hmm.
And M'gann also hits her hard with saying, "I've seen plenty of bruises on you, but I never saw one on Cullen until you went to jail. So if you keep down this path, and there's going to be a day you can't protect him." And this is where Harper confesses and says, "My dad hits me." And that's when she starts this road of recovery to help. Definitely want to unpack that separately, but
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, that closes up Harper's for now. Back to Victor, and it is just as jarring a transition. Trust me.
So at this point, as they are figuring out what to do, Superboy is able to call for the mother box to activate Metron's chair so that it could start healing Victor. At this point, some cables start coming out of the chair. It starts inserting itself into Victor at different points. We see that the chair starts to glow as this light travels down the cables and into Victor as his own body starts to glow the same color as the lights. And we get a really cool visual scene as the beam, you can see it going through his entire body with like the nervous system, the blood cells, every single part of it. And it's like it's clear that the father box color of is kind of like this purplish color. So as the blue light goes through, it starts dissipating all the purple throughout his body. So you started to see less and less of these like horrific pieces, these jagged pieces that the father box has left inside of his nervous system. At that moment when everything does seem to be clear, Victor lets out one more scream, and we see in a very nice callback to what we've been hearing about, like even for Gabrielle's transformation, which does get commented on, is that the soul of the father box exits out of Victor's mouth, and it does seem as if it just gets absorbed by the chair, meaning now that the father box has returned to the source, according to Forager, and it's very similar again to what happened to Gabrielle and when she turned into Violet. So now that that everybody realizes that Victor has been completely cleansed, and even Victor states that he does feel even more of a difference from the last times that he was purged, Jefferson decides to let go of Metron, who again mentions that Victor has been purged, and he's very upset that he missed the opportunity to study such a wonderful thing of the father box taking over an organic system. So when he sits back down in the chair, uh, Superboy states, I could see why Bear punched that guy the last time. But Jefferson has one last question, and he says, "I know I'm not your favorite person, but I need you to tell me, when you mentioned Granny earlier, did you mean Gretchen Good? Are they the same person?" And Metron responds with no and yes before he disappears, leaving us with some more unanswered questions.
I mean, he's gonna troll, and they just beat the
Right, like he had to
they
get
just
one
beat
of
this
them.
man out of his chair.
I would have dragged him back there. I was like, no, you will not leave. You will answer my question with more than 3 words, sir.
This man hasn't stood up in years, and this is like, of course, he gonna troll y'all. Um, and now we cut back to Violet, and Violet has now come clean. She explains her whole journey this season to the mom and the cousin. And while the mom is very accepting, the cousin is not. And understandable, if you were told your cousin came back as this not quite human person, according to her, according to them, it would definitely throw you off. So um the mother accepts it, says, "This is closure for me. Thank you." While the cousin leaves. And then we get a montage of a lot of plots at once. We see Harper and Cullen are going to what looks like a group home. We see Aquaman in a relationship with his boyfriend. We see I kind of got lost track over what are other things happen in this month.
Yes,
a lot.
a lot. So we also see too that as Silas was about to leave, Victor does hold him back, and the two of them actually have an embrace. So we see now in this like montage that Superboy is watching Victor still talking and hanging with his father. What was another plot point? I think it was, yeah, I think also we do see kind of like the return of everybody coming together. And this is where we also we do see that Jefferson and Helga are sitting together. Fortunately, people started to come in, so they couldn't continue their game of Uno. So this is when Brion and Violet finally make eye contact for the first time after being separated for so long. And this is a continuous montage scene, but we do see now an actual animated scene where Tara is on the phone. She's outside on the balcony after everybody's gone to bed, and she gets a phone call from Deathstroke, and she explains that she has nothing to report because it's been quite dull, and promises that if something comes up, she will tell him. But this does feel like there's a lot that happened here. So while Deathstroke is wondering if he doesn't know that maybe Tara might be starting to get swayed over, you can quite say that this is an unknown factor for him as we jump over to our next episode, Unknown Factors.
Yes. Nightwing continues a specific running joke is where he hits on his girlfriend during the mission because he's talking to Barbara and talking about some playtime. I get everyone's playing Uno in this show. I don't understand. It's a craze. So crash. But Jeff calls him out and says, "Can we focus on the mission?" And the mission is that Nightwing has borrowed a mother box and he has detected some apocalyptic tech within the Granny Goodness's house. And he knows Granny Goodness is out. So Jeff doesn't really want to do this illegally. He doesn't want to break into a house where nothing is happening, no one's in trouble. But Nightwing insists upon it. And the break-in goes really well until the two of them fall into a boom tube to locations unknown. And that, my friends, is the title drop.
Yes. So it is quite jarring because also at the same time, Oracle or Barbara Gordon, she's witnessing this happening from her camera feeds and does lose the signal. So while we're all left unknowing what's happening, we do hop over to Atlantis once again, where we see that Wind and Aquaman, the two of them, again establishing the fact that they are in a relationship with one another. They're watching um Dolphin interact with Aquaman's parents. And this is when we finally get the actual name drop of her choosing the name Dolphin, which Aquaman states is like, it clearly is one of the most lovable creatures of the seven seas. But his conversation gets cut short when we see, which I think is a really cool animation kind of style, where it's just like whenever he's in communication with this secret anti-light team, his eyes do kind of light up to indicate that they are trying to communicate with him. And Oracle starts telling him that Nightwing and Jefferson have been missing for the past almost 24 hours. And he's really reluctant to even get involved in this because, again, any Justice League involvement like this, especially given the fact it's going to be at the home of Gretchen Good, could be seen as like a negative thing towards the league. And he starts asking, is there anyone else that can help who's a part of this anti-light? And Barbara sharing that unfortunately Wonder Woman is still out in space, Batman and Robin are in Africa.
Doing what?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure it out. I was like, Static already got it. Static and Anansi will have that handled. And what do y'all need to be in Africa for? But also McGann is on a mission with the team. So really, Aquaman is really the only one that knows that Nightwing went out on this mission. Clearly, though, the technology isn't quite well. The interface still needs a little bit of work because in order to respond to these messages, Aquaman has to state these things very loudly. So Wind overhears him and states that, like, okay, it sounds like you need some backup. So I'll go with you because, you know, they've undergone military training together. And I do like this one thing where Wind shares that, like, unlike Calder, he did not drop out of the Conservancy of Sorcery. So he could beat Calder's ass any day of the week.
I love it. It's like he's like, don't come to the surface world. Things are too tense right now. He's like, bro, I served in the military. What are you talking about? This is what I'm built for this. So I do love that exchange between the two of them. So as they leave for the surface, we catch up with Mal and Karen, as you know, aka Bumblebee, and she is very pregnant. She's about to have a baby. And they discuss the baby's gender, and more heated subject is whether their child will be a meta or not. And Karen kind of casually mentioned she's been studying the genome and possibly knows a way to alter the genome of a child to make sure that they do become a metahuman of some sort. And Mal is kind of curious about it. He's kind of like, maybe this is something we should do to give our child every advantage. And Karen is very reluctant. She's like, is it our position to meddle? It might happen naturally. Let's let the chips fall where they might. And in the middle of this argument, they're in this snow covered road. Karen's water breaks and they're off to the hospital. So we get cut back to the tower. We get a quick, again, reconciliation between Victor and Silas. They are on good terms now, but Victor has decided to stay with the team. Just as Beast Boy and Brion arrive, having barely defeated the most jacked character of this particular section, Condiment King.
Yes. He left Beast Boy bloody, or rather not bloodied, but ketchup, mustard, barbecue sauce, and hoisin sauce. Because he found a way for some reason to get Beast Boy to slip on all this stuff. And Beast Boy ends up spraining his wrist during that fight. I don't know about you, but if I was Condiment King, I would be making jokes about that for the rest of my life. Like, homie really slipped on this hoisin sauce and and broke his wrist.
Yeah, even Captain Boomerang had trouble with Beast Boy. You telling me
Right.
he was handling Beast Boy? That's a good resume builder.
Right? It's like right now, it's like Bane breaking Batman's back and Condiment King breaking Beast Boy's wrist are like the titles right now of like the most Jack character.
I was born in the mustard. I didn't see a ketchup until I was a man.
Oh my god. Yeah. But everybody is at least thrilled that they made their way back and that Condiment King was taken into custody, including Halo, who comes out to congratulate them and shares that she is checking out the We Are All Outsiders hashtag, which is still going strong. So Geoforce uses this as an excuse to just get away, because again, they still haven't talked about Halo and Geoforce haven't talked with each other since she admitted that Gabrielle was a part of his parents' assassination. And when Violet is trying to see if maybe she can just go and talk with him. Helga Jace comes over and dissuades her from doing so. And because the other part of it too is that like Violet has not shared with Brion about this terminal illness. And Helga says, until we can figure it out, I need to speak with my mentor. Um, you should just still keep it under wraps. So she agrees to do that. Meanwhile, though, we do see that unlike our previous episode, we are jumping to plot one again, where Aquaman and Wind are outside Goods Mansion trying to figure out how to enter the building.
Yes. And Barbara is ready to support them, ready to say, look, I can hack you in or something. And Aquaman's like, that's not gonna be necessary. And like a boss, he walks through the front door and says,
Mm-hmm.
Granny, come on, level with me. Can we talk for a second? And Granny comes in like, I know who y'all looking for. I know, you know what? I'm that, I'm that one. I'm gonna take you right there. Okay. So they Granny agrees to take the duo to where their compadres are. Meanwhile, we cut over to Mal and Karen, and Mal, this man, he is trying to rush Karen's labor so she could have the baby on Martin Luther King Day. My man's, I I
You
can't hate you,
right.
but
Oh man, like we are the blackest people in this show. We're gonna have the blackest baby if we can. Oh my gosh. So of course Karen is quite upset about this because Mal's not doing any of the work that she is currently doing. And after what does seem to be a very intense labor, she does give birth to a baby girl. And everything seems to be fine. Unfortunately, the OBGYN who is there, she states that the baby's fingers and lips are blue, which is a sign of cyanosis. So they start rushing the baby away and they're questioning like what's going on with the kid. And we cut from that scene because right at that moment she shares that something is wrong with the baby. But we apparently have to hop back over to the headquarters where Beast Boy and Victor are like talking about like how Victor has this really cool new tech. He's showing him how Blue Beetle showed him how to make a cannon from his hand, and they decide that maybe this is a time to test out Victor's new like abilities and strength.
yes, and in one word, he can lift, bro, because he is
Mm-hmm.
actually the truly most jacked character. As with just a slight adjustment, he's not only clearing 220 pounds with one arm, but he's throwing that into the next ceiling where hopefully nobody was standing. Um, and this is a really nice moment because Cyborg has not been allowed to have fun in a very long time in this
Yeah.
season. So it's fun to see Cyborg and Beast Boy get along. Um, Elsewhere, Brion and Helga are talking. Helga's trying to give him some relationship advice, saying, look, wait for her to come to you. And when she does, that's when let her talk, let her, because she's ready to come to you. And right from there, we go back to Karen and Mal. And I love this line where Karen is putting on her suit to shrink. And nurse goes, I take the babies out of the moms. I never put the moms in the babies.
That was honestly one of my favorite lines in this entire series so far.
Yeah, I love that line so much. And Karen decides she's going to shrink down. She's going to go inside of a syringe and get injected so that she can personally see to her baby's heart. And as we wait to see what will come of this, we cut back to the Atlantean duo.
As they enter into the home again, Gretchen is clearly showing that she knows where they are. So she decides to take Aquaman and Wind down into this area called the X Pit. So they start falling into the ground, and then they're in this red cube, and they are now in this place where it just seems like there is nothing at all. Everything has just been. It just seems to be like a yellowish continuous emptiness, where at first it does seem like they're pretty safe, but then when they make their way over to where Nightwing and Black Lightning are, it shows that they're in this like constant state of torture. You can see that like it almost seems as if like pieces of their body are missing, as if they're kind of being erased from the like from existence. And they're screaming in pain, as we just hear constantly over and over, that the pain that the pain that you're going through will make sure that you follow Darkseid's will. It's a jarring experience because, of course, Aquaman and Wind are quite upset about seeing their friends in this state. So Gretchen Good states, "Hey, if you want to go and get them, you can do so. Just go out, go outside the red cube, and you can just bring them back in, and you can leave with them." Unfortunately, though, because they leave the red cube, they start going through the same experience that Jefferson and Nightwing are going through, and luckily, Wind is able to activate his Atlantean marks around his body, showing that apparently it does create a bit of a buffer between this chaos state that they're in the X pit. So now that they're both able to activate their ink, they start grabbing everybody, and we do see that Wind also grabs the mother box, and this is when they fall back into the red cube, and Gretchen brings them back up to her regular home.
Yeah, and heel turn, Nightlight are evil now. They've been brainwashed in the X pit, and now they're ready to fight. So as they prepare to fight, we cut back to Karen, who is now shrunk down. She has repaired her daughter's heart. And this is where we get, I'm gonna say, one of the best scenes in Young Justice, full
Mm-hmm.
stop. Because she says, I need a minute. And she shrinks down to her baby's DNA. And as we hear her describing how, at a lecture from a different scene about how you can alter the baby's DNA, she starts altering her child's DNA. She made a decision. And I thought this scene was so incredible because they posed the question at first. It should seem like a straight shot. If your child is not naturally born with the gift, they'll find other gifts. They'll have something in their life. But here, after a child suffers something, a heart condition right at birth, she says to herself, "What if I can prevent her from ever feeling sick, ever getting sick again? If I could just turn her into a metahuman." Now, granted, she has no idea what powers will result. She has no idea what she's actually doing, what effect it might have on her child, but she knows this is the only chance she'll ever have to make that change, and she decides to take it. I think as a concept beyond a superhero show, as a short story,
Mm-hmm.
even this would function incredibly well. And I think this is by far one of the finest scenes in the show.
Yeah, I love the part two where it does come into the question of the ethical debate, because it played really nicely along with like of all the other scenes that we're seeing them go through, where they're in the car and they're talking about like what does it mean because of now that more kids are being tested for the metagene. And even something we forgot to mention, Mal went to go get tested for the metagene, and he states that he doesn't have it. So now it's definitely clear that like there's a possibility their daughter might never have the metagene, because Karen tested herself originally and she said she didn't have it. So there's a possibility that the same thing might happen to their daughter. And they're wondering, should they actually give their daughter the leg up if they can? And here it is that like this, she mentions it is an ethical debate, and it played out really well, especially in like very stressful moments where, again, Karen just gave birth. So, and she's already going through this whole thing to try and just save her daughter by adding this patch to her daughter's heart. But at the same time, Mal is freaking out because, in the honest and unfortunately in the story that's very unfortunately very common at times, where it's just like you have the black mother who, the child, something's wrong with the child, and there's a possibility that they might also lose the mother. Here it is that Mal's seeing that firsthand, and it's because he doesn't know if Karen is up to it at this moment, because again he's saying you just gave birth, like we can find an alternative. So all of these questions that are coming up in a very strong scene, which I think this is one of the strongest scenes, not only for where she alters her kid's DNA, but also the story between the two of them that played out in like honestly in the span of like 5 minutes or so. It's like really good.
Sorry, just in case you're wondering, why didn't a doctor come in? Snowden. They set it up
Oh,
earlier, so
yes.
she was the only option.
Hmm.
So that was another really small thing they didn't have to include, but they did. They
Yes.
did. They did.
Yes. Yep. Great writing on that story, honestly. It's just so good.
Yes.
And to continue on with our story, the fighting is still continuing on between Black Lightning, Nightwing versus Aquaman and Wind here. They are trying to figure out what to do. Fortunately, do have a bit of an advantage because as Atlanteans, they are stronger than their two brainwashed comrades. But this is where Gretchen states that, you know, yeah, you're stronger, but there's only two of you, meaning that the mother box is still out in range. So she asked her thing, her overlord, as it's called. So we see this giant big head. Honestly, kind of looks like a bit more of a robotic version of MODOK, uh, who controls more or less everything in her house. It's like this is some crazy interface that she has set up. And as it starts to attack the mother box, we can hear the wailing cries of the mother box. And the only people to actually hear outside of who are there and us are Victor and Violet, who immediately stop what they're doing and say that there's something going on. And this is where we get to see the craziest thing ever, where Victor is the one that creates a boom tube, much to the shock of Geoforce and Beast Boy, who are just like, all right, we don't know where he's going, but we're going with him. So now we see that Victor, Halo, Geoforce, and Beast Boy are, as they leap through the boom tube, they end up right in the middle of Gretchen Good's mansion. So Victor destroys the laser. Halo starts curing the mother box. And then she also starts purging Dick and Lightning of the the brainwashing that they went through, which is something of a shock to Gretchen as she realizes how she's doing it.
Yeah, I also want to mention a running joke has been how loud boom tubes actually are in these
Oh yes.
episodes. And yeah, they definitely use that to great effect. People are jump out of their skin when a boom tube gets activated. But um right now, there Barbara is able to temporarily knock Granny off her feet. They all decide to cut their losses and go. Um, Despite everything that has happened, Granny still seems very confident. She comforts Overlord, but I like to call her Advanced Alexa. And we cut over to Karen and Mal. And Karen, this is something I was truly not expecting. She tells her husband what she did.
Mm-hmm.
She fully tells her husband she made the right choice for her daughter. And that leaves it at that. And he's completely fine with it. So there's no hiding of a secret. This whole story is looped in. She made a tough call, but it was a call for her daughter. And now we close with Nightwing and Black Lightning suffering the after effects of being sent to the X pit.
Yeah, so Jefferson does seem to be kind of a little bit more recovered. And this is probably because he's probably a bit more shocked and been trying to focus on what he saw because unlike everybody else, he did see what shot the Overlord to help save them. And he realized it's kind of like a bat drone. So he's like questioning how did this happen? He's also questioning you can see in his eyes where he's like questioning how is it that Barbara already knew to like attend to Dick Grayson. Um, at this time, though, Aquaman and Wind are just decided to take a step back to just recover from everything. And Wind states that, like, I don't see the appeal of the surface world, but if Calder's there, I'll be there. At the same time, Geoforce comes up and he starts to finally have this conversation with Violet. Also, fun fact: I realized that Geoforce never talked the entire time in the previous episode.
Oh,
So I don't know if it was something purposeful or if it was something happening behind the scenes, but it's nice now that he actually had a chance to apologize to Violet for his behavior. So when they hug, um, this is where Helga does see what's happening and she does seem a bit upset. So she starts texting her phone and says there are some complications, and we see that the person who's on the other line is the Ultra Humanite, the not quite Gorilla Grodd, but someone who is just as intimidating.
Yeah, I just was like, that's an evil monkey. I didn't know which one, but I was like, one of them. It's an evil monkey.
One of them. Yes, what was his name? Superboy will be quite upset when he sees this. And then that's how our episode ends. However, we do get, for the first time ever in a Young Justice episode, a post-credit scene where we see that Gretchen Good is talking with someone, because earlier when she saw Violet using her powers to cleanse Nightwing and Black Lightning, she realizes that she was speaking in the old tongue, this the tongue of the old tongue of the gods. So she starts telling this individual that she thinks she's found it. She thinks she has found the anti-life equation, and we see that the person that she's talking to is the one and only Darkseid. So
you're gonna say Matches Malone?
No, we gotta. That's only for another time. That's gonna be the villain for season 5.
Spoilers, sorry.
So now that we've got all of this happening here, we finally, after, I don't know, this is like 21 episodes into the season 3 that's been preparing it through the title sequence, we finally heard what the anti-life equation is. We ask you all to just head on back to season 1 to find out exactly what that is. So while you do that, also check out these podcasts from the Forgotten Entertainment family. So that the next time you're not listening to us, you can listen to them.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And you're listening to the Forgotten Cinema Generic Ad.
Join us every Wednesday as we talk about films that seem to be forgotten by audiences, whether it be because a more popular movie was released at the same time or the film simply didn't catch on with an audience in its initial run. We'll discuss what we love about the film, maybe don't love about it, but we'll always recommend you revisit it. You never know, you might find your own forgotten gem. Forgotten Cinema is available wherever you get your podcasts, or at ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com or ForgottenEntertainment.com, as we are a proud part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
I swear I talk more in the episodes.
All right. Now that we finished at our 2 episodes, well, actually, it's probably like 2 episodes and 17 plot points. which episode are you giving the most whelmed award
to? Well, okay, let's not even play around here. We know.
Yeah.
we know the answer is unknown factors. The Karen scene alone would have elevated it, but it advances the plot. It gives us crucial character development. It lets Victor be Victor. It basically lets everybody be Phelps. And really deepens builds this distrust between Black Lightning and Nightwing, builds Aquaman's relationship, and expands the world. What I have to say about the Quiet Conversations, besides all the plot points, is my arte alteration. The issue, if I can get on my soapbox for a second, the issues I think Young Justice runs into at times is justifiably because they're juggling so many characters. A lot of events that would work better together are spread apart over episodes, thus kind of lessening the effect of the plot. For example, the last time we saw Victor, they mentioned him. It is unclear why they couldn't have moved this Victor plot earlier in the season, where there's not a ton that ties it to the story. And if you want it, Victor can go off for a while if you don't want him in the other stories, and then come back to the team when he's ready, spend time with his father offline. All that to say, my arte alteration is that this really effective plot with Harper and confronting domestic abuse needs to be put not only an episode or 2 after the incident itself, but you pair it with what Tara and Artemis experienced as children, because they both Artemis came from a household where her father was abusive during training and probably emotionally as well. And Tara comes from years of being in a really rocky relationship with Slade, where she was punished, where she was forced to do evil things. Pair those two together, pair that plot line, parallel it with Harper, and then you create a story where people see there are different kinds and levels to this of inappropriate behavior from parents that goes beyond any acceptable norms. It becomes, they're really tormenting their own children. If you put that all in, the messages get reinforced, and it doesn't, so people also don't know it's not always a bruise on the eye, it's not always missing school, falling downstairs. There are other forms of abuse domestically that should be given weight and importance, and they were lost in the shuffle of so many plot lines here. So that's what I would do. I would put these all in one episode so that the message rings true. It's focused on these young women who are going through this very difficult time, and is providing different avenues, talking to a mentor like Artemis, talking to a counselor, talking to a law official. There are options, but when you put it in a 18 episode plot line, this does get lost. So that's where I am with the whelming.
Yeah. No, that's well said. I agree. Like it does, that was the thing that I did like about Quiet Conversations, and it ties very well to the title too of this conversation that Harper is having with McGann, because and another thing that I forgot to mention was that at the end of that episode, it does provide the number that you can call, as well as additional the website that you can find additional resources should anyone be experiencing anything like this, so that help can be found and had. So, and I think that that's what was important about that episode, but it does get buried when you see everything else that's happening. So I do like the fact of, tie it back in with that training that you mentioned, because I think that conversation between Artemis and Tara was really great to me. And it does feel like even then it kind of got buried in everything else that was happening in that episode. Where it's just like, why is it that we haven't seen Tara and Artemis kind of train a bit more intently, especially because Tara is a new person on the team. So she wasn't training with like the rest of them. She doesn't have quite the same skill set, but she does seem to be ahead. And and Artemis is the perfect person to train her because of that. So we could have done the whole episode, like you said, of just like that training in general and tying that conversation with the Violet Harper scenario that was happening, and how Harper's now talking with McGann about what she's been experiencing. This is so then with that being said, it's already clear that my favorite episode was also Unknown Factors. It was the most whelmed. It definitely felt like a true Young Justice episode, where you do have like just the perfect amount of action, the perfect amount of storytelling, and like a great lesson that you leave with by the end of it. The other reason why Unknown Factors, unfortunately, Quiet Conversations just didn't do it for me was the fact that it almost feels like the episode was rushed a bit. And I'm not even just talking about the pacing, but it does feel like, certain things couldn't play out. Like we had that very long montage scene at the end where it's just like all the stories are coming together. Something that I think did well with like the Matches Malone, Professor Ivo thing, because we had someone voicing over what was going on, but it didn't feel like we had it this time around. And I'm still questioning, why was it that Brion didn't talk the entire time? So it did feel like maybe this was an episode that got rushed out, and they didn't have like everybody that they could have gotten. So they just decided, let's try to get these like little short stories to speed up the story a little bit, the plot of the full season, so that we can, again, because at this point at episode 20 there's really only 6 episodes left in the Outsider season. So now it's like we understand with episode 21 that we are going to be facing off against Gretchen Good. We also understand that like things might be coming to a head because people are feeling either terrible about the lying that they have to do, like how Calder is feeling, or people who've been kept out the dark that might come to light very soon as Jefferson's picking up on certain things. So I think that Quiet Conversations unfortunately was just felt like a rushed episode, and hopefully maybe what was the main plot of that was the conversation between Harper and McGann, but they probably just felt they couldn't fill that up with as much. But it would have been nice to have like that moment where it's just like it was more sort of focus on them because um it's Harper is such a new character in this world. Not necessarily new in comics, but like new enough that like at this point, not that many people would have known about Harper or Cullen. Now I guess people probably know because unfortunately the character was introduced during the Gotham Knights television series. Yeah. But other than that, I think we're at a point now where it's just like I appreciate what they did for Harper, did not appreciate what they did with the storytelling. Where probably could have actually gotten rid of the Violet going to talk with her family part, because it's not the first time where it's like Superboy has gone on this like random adventure dealing with like the Forever People or the New Gods, and then we get like this deep story coming from like that hits you at the heartstrings happening.
I'm telling you, somebody in the show hated Superboy because every time he messes around with those new gods, the episode for some reason falters.
Yeah.
I also want to mention, this is even though it's a rewatch, I still have trouble remembering some things.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, they're setting up that Tara in a really quick scene was so happy about finding Violet, right? But the previous episode, Violet tells her that, hey, by the way, I'm the reason your parents are dead.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to lead to her like turn to the good side. But it doesn't make any sense because even in the episode where during a thunderstorm, they're like, oh, comfort. Why wouldn't you let Tara comfort Violet then? Because then at least you have an extra bit of connection between the 2 Here, it just feels like I'm glad she's willing to forgive Gabrielle, but I would have loved to see the slash Violet, but I would love to see that conversation of I understand when you do things that you don't want to do. Right. Could be that simple, and that's how they relate. But here, yeah, because of her reaction to now, I just don't see why Tara is so happy about this.
It does still feel like Tara is too disconnected from the team to have these strong emotional reactions to them at this point. Like so far, the only one that has made sense to me was her reaction to losing that sparring match with Artemis. Like that is the only thing that seems to be within her character at this point. It doesn't feel like, I don't know, it feels like even though she does seem to be swaying away from Slade, there's a lot of people who still probably upset her. Like is she even cool with Beast Boy? She's still working on this. Like, she's not even working on the outside. She's working with the team. So it's like, are there connections happening behind the scenes that we're just not seeing? I don't know. But we got 6 more episodes in this season to figure, or 5 more episodes of this season to figure that out.
And now we start a montage where we go through them all right now.
Oh man, yeah. So I kind of, I guess. Mainly because we're gonna leap on ahead because now that we've kind of figured out who is the true villain here, felt like this is probably a good time to actually talk about the very bad individual Gretchen Good, aka Granny Goodness. So Granny Goodness first appeared in Mr. Miracle #2. The subtitle for that was The X-Pit back in May of 1971. And fun fact, this is also where Overlord makes his debut as well.
Alexa Jr.
Yes. So as a new god, of course, this means that Granny Goodness was created by Jack Kirby. But the fun fact about her is that her design was influenced by the comedian Phyllis Diller.
I hope she feels flattered.
So throughout the media of everything that she's ever been in, and we're talking from comic books to first animated appearance in Superman the Animated Series, live action appearance in Smallville even, she's always known as one of the main disciples of Darkseid, always seen alongside like the likes of Desaad, Steppenwolf, and our boy over at Fox News, G. Gordon Godfrey. But her responsibility for Darkseid is that she's in charge of training all of Darkseid's top warriors, or even just his army in general. So we get a chance to learn about her origin in the future comic, not in the same one in this Mr. Miracle, who, as just as a quick refresher about that guy, also goes by the name of Scott Free. He is son of the New Gods over in New Genesis, and he was traded with Orion to help stop the beef between Apocalypse and New Genesis. That did not work out. So he ended up being in this X Pit, which is a torture chamber, as we saw in our show, but it's not quite as crazy as it looks in the show. It's more actually kind of like an actual torture chamber on Apocalypse. So she was in charge of doing all of that because her thing was that she trained Darkseid's warriors to make sure that they followed him through torture. And we get a chance to see how that all started in her origin, because Gretchen Good was a member of this low class, the peasant class of apocalyptian individuals called the Low Lives. And in something, I guess it's like kind of like a plot point, and a lot of stories are kind of like this. She was given to Darkseid's army because it was that way of like trying to see if they can take themselves out of the poverty. So she was put in Darkseid's army to be trained as a hound. And in that comic, where again, this was a future comic, this is the first time I think they actually showed that Gretchen Good was actually a dark-skinned bald woman. So
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
usually she's white, so it was kind of shocking to see that like she kind of looked like Adora Milaje actually. So yes, the Hounds were the military forces from Apocalypse. So while she was a part of this group, she was given this dog named Mercy. The two of them, they rose to the top of their class, and upon the graduation, her trainer told her that in order to graduate, to be promoted to the next step, she had to kill her dog. Granny didn't want to do this, so and she was really reluctant to do so. So she did graduate, and she graduated because she decided to shoot and kill her trainer instead.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought this was gonna turn into a John Wick, but actually, all right.
So when Darkseid heard about this, he was quite intrigued. So he decided to have a meeting with her and Mercy. And during their conversation, she shared that the reason why she didn't kill the dog was because it would be such a waste of a loyal servant for Darkseid. And she showed him that she had trained the dog to follow Darkseid's commands above all else, even her own. Darkseid again was super intrigued by this, so he decided to test that and commanded Mercy to kill Granny. Unfortunately, this is when Granny actually had to kill the dog because she was wanting to make sure that even though she trained this dog to follow Darkseid's orders, she wanted to show that she was a better warrior than that she would be the best warrior that Darkseid will ever have. So not quite like John Wick, but a little scarier. Again, Darkseid was just super pleased about this, so he promoted her. She rose up. He promoted her past every single level you could think of and made her the new person in charge of training his armies so that she can do the same thing that she did with this dog, where using pain and torture to break their will so they all would follow Darkseid, and decided to set it up. Honestly, she created like a revolutionary way of doing this training. So as we know, Granny is in charge of the Furies. These are women of Apocalypse who are the most badass women of all time on this planet, who are also the most dangerous individuals that had the likes of like Big Barda, I think it was like Lashia, basically everybody, all like crazy strong killer individuals. Um, she also established some orphanages on Apocalypse and on Earth, all with the goal to brainwash them so that at a young age they will already be devoted to Darkseid, and then use that as a way to keep an eye on who else might be able to join these high commands such as the Furies and other institutions that she built up within them. She got even crazier in her storytelling, where she pretended to be the goddess Athena and tricked some of the Amazons to be soldiers of Darkseid.
That's brilliant.
And she did so by capturing every single one of these older gods, the old Promethean gods like Zeus, Hera. Everybody was captured by her, and all the Amazons were just following her orders.
That's some impressive stuff.
Yeah. She also did something similar on Oa, where she pretended to be another kind of god for them, or a higher ranking like cosmic being. And she got them all to believe that Hal Jordan killed the new god Orion so that she could continue to sway the Green Lanterns in her own way. Currently, she's facing off against the Flash in issues like number 798 and 799. So it may come to a resolution with Flash's 800th issue coming out soon. But Granny Goodness is someone who I'm kind of more excited to see play a bigger part, because I love seeing her roles in Superman the Animated Series. She was voiced by Edward Asner, and now it's like amazing to see that this person has grown throughout every single media. So she's already, like you mentioned, in animation. She's in live action television, and we recently also saw her in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So hopefully this means that we're going to get a chance to see more and more of Granny Goodness, whether it be through her very serious takes like what happened in like Superman the Animated Series in Smallville, or even more comedic takes like we saw I believe in season 3 of Harley Quinn. It's going to be wild. When we see her here, you just know that the heroes are going to be in trouble, because the other thing about her, she can take a hit and she can give you an even harder hit. So yeah, with that, that's Granny Goodness. There's a lot of great stuff that you can check out about her. A lot of it's definitely always going to be connected to the New God stuff, but we also get a chance to experience how crazy and evil she is, which I'm hoping gets a chance on the bigger screen very soon, because we're going to see it soon in these next 5 episodes of the season of Young Justice Outsiders. So while we prep for that wraps our episode here. Be sure to check us out on our socials and our Patreon. We are doing a lot of great things out there, and the more people that are involved, the more we can do. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves, and remember that not all grannies are good. Some may take you down into the dark basements and do things to you not the way you're thinking. Get your mind out the gutter, you.
And if your friend whips out a boom tube so y'all can skip the trains and transit, wear some earplugs, because damn, your stuff gonna be blown out. And not in the way you're thinking either.
Thanks again for listening. Yet Another DC Animated Podcast is a proud part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. If you liked what you heard, leave a review and share us with a friend. Also be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and on social media at YA DC Animated Pod.